Well, I would like to welcome all of you on this Tuesday afternoon to the third season of the Stockbridge Library, Museum, and Archives online poetry series. This season, our theme is inquiry and the power of poetry in both asking and answering questions. Before I introduce our poet today, who will be reading for us, I do want to take a moment to introduce and thank John Gillespie. John, 3 years ago, at the very beginning of the pandemic, when we all found ourselves stuck at home, John was the president of the board of the Stockbridge Library Association. And among the various gifts that he gave to the library, this program was one. He had a great idea and he put it together and found poets to read for us each and every week through that first difficult year. And here we are 3 years later. So John, thank you so much.
Yeah, thanks.
And thank you to Traci O'Day, who is with us today and reading with us. She is actually joining us from the UK, where she lives in Jersey. She is an American poet, and she's the author of 2 poetry collections, Waving, published in 2021, and Restricted Movement, also published in 2021. There's also an audio book for Restricted Movement, which is great. Audiobooks of poetry are a favorite of mine. It's so nice to hear poets in their own voice, which we'll be able to enjoy today. Her poems have appeared on BBC Radio Jersey, in Poetry, Poetry Daily, Literary Matters, the Hopkins Review, the Jersey Evening Post, the Goethe Institute, as well as other places. And in 2023, Traci will have coming out a feminist interpretation of Baudelaire's Le Fleur de Mal. So something to look forward to there. Thank you, Traci. Thank you, John. I'll turn the program over to you.
Yeah, no, that's great. Thank you, Wendy. So Traci, before I start, I hope you laugh. I like a lot of humor, so. My wife and I lived in Chicago, Cincinnati, outside Philadelphia, New Jersey, Washington, D.C., on Capitol Hill, Stockbridge, Mass., and now Topsom, Maine. And our kids grew up in New Jersey, and you're probably not going to like this, but I tell people, yeah, we were in Jersey for 20 years. I got stuck in Jersey. You know, that's a funny, well, it's not funny now because you're in the, I think you might be in the better Jersey than New Jersey. So I just wanted to tell you that's my Jersey joke. So
I'm in the OJ, the original Jersey.
Yeah.
So the New Jersey was obviously
the New Jersey, yeah.
Jersey, and that's where I am.
Yeah, the New Jersey was the Turnpike, the Garden State Parkway, oil refineries. Yeah, it was a strange, nice but strange.
The shore is nice,
for me. What?
The shore is nice.
Yeah. Oh no, we went down to Long Beach Island, probably for about 20 years with some friends, and overall, yeah, it was just great. It was just great. No, there's great parts of every place, but yeah, stuck in Jersey. There you go. There's a poem in there somewhere. I'll have to start working on that one.
My Jersey is a little bit more easier to get stuck on because we are a 9 by 5 mile island. So it's a lot easier to get stuck on this Jersey if the boats aren't running or if there's too much fog on the runway. So we do get stuck in this Jersey as well.
Wow. Well, there you go. I love it. I'm loving this already. So Traci, what does inquiry mean to you regarding poetry?
I love this question, and I want to thank you for having me, John and Wendy, and for the audience members. And I want to thank Joe Harrison, who is a poet in Baltimore, who recommended this series to me. And I want to thank the previous poets. I've had the opportunity to watch some of their recordings, and it was really brilliant to see how they responded to this question. For me, it was, before I watched anyone else, I sort of had to think about it. And it's mostly, inquiry means digging. I do a lot of digging in my poetry, and I wasn't even thinking of Seamus Heaney until just now, but obviously there's that poem, Digging. And I mean, maybe even mining. So just, or metal detecting, just looking for that gem of truth inside of all the dirt and silt and clay and ore and whatever else is rattling around in my brain, and just trying to find that beautiful gem. And it is of truth is what I'm looking for. In the past, I think I was mostly looking for, you know, a beautiful image or something clever. But now I'm really looking for truth with a capital T. Like I want to know, I want to tackle the big things, and I want to get to the stuff that is challenging me or making me tick, or what is why am I here? I mean, it's really the big questions now. I think I've gotten to. I've discovered today that my first publication was in poetry in November 2003. So it was 20 years ago that I've been publishing poems, and twice as long since I've been writing them. So it's just, I feel like I've just gotten to the point now where I really just want to get to the nitty-gritty.
So got a whole bunch of questions regarding that. So do you start out with looking for the big T, the big truth, or do you kind of let it arrive as the writing unfolds?
Yeah, I definitely never start out looking for that. I'll start out trusting my voice and trusting that I might have something that I'm interested in thinking about, or something that's really bothering me. So there might be something in my head that's really messing with me. So I know that I have to write it in order to get it out of my head and on the page, because once it's on the page, I can look at it objectively, and I can tackle it and get it out of my head. So once it's out of my head, then I know, okay, well, this was something important enough to be rattling around in there, and important enough to not just go out immediately, but to sort of to stick in there for a while.
Resonate around,
Yeah, so I need to deal with this. And it might, I mean, it might be something that's in my head and in my heart, like something that's heavy. So I'll be like, okay, I've got to write about this. I'm not given a choice here. So I'll start just writing about whatever that thing is. And it could be something just, you know, I don't know, it could be a worry, or it could be a joy, or it could be something really funny that I just can't stop thinking about. And I'll start writing about it. Or it could be some image, or it could start off with an image, and then eventually it will reveal something bigger than what it started out as. And I think I don't like to let a poem go until it has said something more to me.
So is there an example that you could share with us of, you know, maybe give us a pre-poem context, and then you know, if it makes sense, if you can do it.
Yeah, no. I'll start off. There was a poem in which I actually ask a question, and yeah, I mean, it gets to it eventually gets there. It's a sonnet, and it's called Tarot. It's from my book Restricted Movement, which came out in 2021, published by Scotland Street Press. And this book is paintings by my father. So there are lots of little paintings in here by my dad, who's an artist. And some of the poems are responses to his artwork. And other poems are just about, so during the pandemic, my dad started disappearing. So a lot of the poems are about me being 3,000 miles away. My dad was in Baltimore, and he would disappear. He had some memory issues, as well as he was a recovering drug addict. So there was this sort of like stress of my father disappearing, and no one was allowed to go out and look for him, and he was ending up in emergency rooms. He's fine now, by the way. He's fine. He's safe.
Good.
He's wonderful. He loves the book. He loves the book so much. He's very proud of it. even though it's very honest and sometimes very revealing about him. It's also very loving, and he's a very funny, wonderful, loving, charming man. So that can't help but shine through. So this first poem happened. He would disappear all the time. I'm talking like 10 to 12 times during the 12 months or 16 months or 18 months. So this one's called Tarot. Yvonne asks me to windshield wipe my mind, then concentrate on one question and pick from her archangel deck. While shuffling them, I ask if Dad will be okay, then flip the Piper card. A nude wreathed warrior kisses the measured reeds of a pan flute. He's full of life, a blur, and colorful in two-dimensional hand-sketched sepia. I picture Dad, inert, sunken and gray in a too loose gown. Beside his bed, a heap of broken bagpipe parts. His breathing tube and lungs I must repair with silver tape, wax temp, and super glue. Inflate with air, play anything through them that's not a dirge.
He's a bagpipe. He played the bagpipes a lot.
So my dad does not. My husband does play the bagpipes.
Oh, he plays. His husband does. Okay.
And my publisher actually plays the bagpipes. So I knew that she would love a bagpipe poem. But I definitely had that. My husband would play the bagpipes during the pandemic sometimes in Jersey, just to sort of maybe cheer people up or just because he could. And that was sort of part of the pandemic for me. And I had this image of my dad on a breathing tube with a respirator and the idea of having to breathe air into him like bagpipes.
Very nice. Yeah, I guess there's so many questions. No, this is great. This is great. So, yeah, you started out with some things about your dad and it turned into that poem. Are there ones, was Dad more of the central theme of kind of the pandemic? It sounded like it could have been a source of a lot of poetry. His disappearing, reappearing, don't know where he is, stuff.
So I was sending out my manuscript at the beginning of the pandemic, and I sent it to this publisher in Scotland. And she said, I love your poems, but I'm sort of looking for something. It was the very beginning of the pandemic. And she said, I'm sort of looking for something more relative to what's going on right now to publish. And I said, oh, well, the only thing I'm writing right now are poems about my dad. Like, he keeps disappearing. And that wasn't in my manuscript. This was all new work. I said, he just keeps disappearing. So that's all I'm writing right now. And she was like, oh, well, I'd be interested in reading that. Also, they're a publisher that always includes illustrations with their poetry. So she said, well, do you know anyone who might want to illustrate it? And I said, well, my dad's a painter, so I think it would be amazing if we could include his artwork with these poems about him. And she just said, okay, then this is happening. So then I had to write the rest of the book.
Nice. So I guess, so the tarot card thing was an actual experience?
Yeah, it was.
So I guess the question, if you, the reader, what would happen if you didn't get the Piper card?
Well, I did.
Or, I know, but I'm saying is, I don't know how many cards there are. I don't do it. So I didn't know if there was, maybe there were some cards that were, I don't know.
There are loads of, I could have gotten loads of crazy cards. There are loads of people who write tarot card. There are definitely books of poems about tarot cards. So yeah, I could have gone anywhere with that. I just happened to draw that one. And that's where that came from. But that's, again, inquiry, right? I was asking a question and that was the answer I got.
So, I just love what you've said about, writing to find the truth, mining, looking for that gem of truth. Is it, brought over a bunch of, part of the truth of living in Jersey, or the world at large. I'm just wondering how broad your gem mining expands to.
Oh my gosh, that's a really good question. How broad? I mean, I guess if I think of it like metal detecting, which is sort of popped into my head, the surface of anywhere. I mean, I live on the beach, so I will look out onto the beach and see metal detectors out there doing their thing and finding rings and actual bits of jewelry and also bottle caps and stuff. I guess I would mine the surface, metal detect through the surface of anything. A lot of that book is just about Dad and art and Jersey and Baltimore. So because I kept coming back and forth to Baltimore during the pandemic, even though I wasn't really supposed to, as an American citizen, I was allowed to go home whenever I wanted to. And then as a resident of Jersey, I was allowed to come home whenever I wanted to. So when Dad would disappear or when he needed help getting back into a home or anything, I would sort of take advantage of that status and be able to travel. So I was in Baltimore during a lot of the pandemic and in Jersey. So there's a lot about what was going on in those places at that time and sort of trying to find out why this was happening and how it was affecting people.
Wow, great. So are there some more poems you could share with us?
Sure there are. Well, I just noticed that my mom logged in. So this poem so there are a lot of poems in the sequence that are just called Dear Dad. And so the poem is entirely in some sort of iambic meter, whether it's pentameter or these are sort of long line poems, mixed meter poems, but they're all iambic. So this is they're letters and they're called Dear Dad. So this one is called Dear Dad. Dear Dad, Mom says she's jealous that you're getting a book. She's not. I get her point. She raised us on her own. I never knew you growing up. Sometimes I'd walk by a homeless man in Fells and ask if they were you. She doesn't know that not having to write about her is the greatest compliment. It means that she's the opposite of stress, what I escape to, not from. I write the things my brain can't handle on its own. I get them down on paper, see them on the page, then wrestle them into a form I can control, or I get overwhelmed. My stepdad's never hidden his disdain for you, for choosing drugs over your wife and kids. He married Mom when we were 8 and 11 and knew you never tried to see us our whole lives until you sobered up and we grew up. He didn't want you at my wedding at their house, but I had to let you come. So as I pass him in the driveway, roll down windows to say hello, and he asks if you're okay, tears come. You have no clue how much it kills me keeping you alive.
Ooh. Yeah, I think Mom wants to stay on the sidelines of that one. Oh, great. No, fantastic. So let's we have a little time, as I said, where, we have the people attending the show ask some questions or give some comments. I think you said Trish is your mom.
Yeah.
So Trish, I say it, Kathy knows, I've said this 100 times. Trish, don't let the poet off easy. This is your time to do some quizzing, commenting, whatever, gerrymandering. Only kidding. Kathy knows I like to incite the audience. So
she might be happy in the background.
Yeah, no, listen, listen, after that last one, I'm looking for a place to hide my office here. So Kathy or Irene or Trish have any comments or questions? Kathy, you're muted.
I really enjoyed both of those poems. And I'm sure you get asked a lot, how you maybe preface the writing of these poems, and that they were going to get published with the people that you know. So, you know, sometimes people say they don't want to try to publish poems that are about the people that are in their lives. Was that ever a conflict, or is it just something that you've been able to do?
My family is super duper supportive, and I guess I was most worried about my sister. So she appears in a lot, and so I sent it to her, the whole book, and just said, I want to know that this is okay with you. My dad, I knew my dad wouldn't care, and I mean, it's so personal about him. But he's just sort of this love bug, and he adores us so much that he's just so proud of it. That, yeah, so I actually didn't even worry about him.
Yeah.
But yeah, there's a poem in here where I ask myself, like, why is this okay? Like, how come I shouldn't really be allowed to do this? And I'm basically stealing all these people's stuff to write this book. But I felt like I really had to be honest and uncensored and not care in order to get this piece of work out.
Absolutely.
Thank you for asking.
Absolutely.
Hi.
Tess?
Can you
Oh,
hear
hi,
me?
Trish.
Hi, how are you?
We
I'm
can't
good.
see
How are
you, Trish, so you're
Good.
hiding behind a curtain there.
Yeah.
That's okay.
Oh, you can't see me?
No.
Oh, can you
That's
see
okay.
me now?
Oh,
Yes,
there you go. There we go.
Here I am. Here I am. I'm very extremely proud of my daughter, as I am of all three daughters. But I have said this many times that I have read and reread this book, and every single time I find something new, something that that must have skimmed over, that resonates with me at the time that I'm reading it. And I love it. It's not a book that you just read once and put down. You pick it up and you read it again and again and again. But Traci, I want to know what you're working on now.
Oh, that's a good question. I am working on a book of feminist translations of Baudelaire poems that was maybe going to come out this year, but now it looks like it's going to come out next year because it was a much bigger endeavor than I thought it was going to be. And oh, hi Jane. Hi Jane. And so that's what I'm working on, and also side poems and the never-ending novel. Thank you for asking.
So Trish, what does it mean? You know, we've had other poets on. Yeah, we had one poet on that there were 5 other family members on the show, and there was always a concern that one member was going to get mad because they didn't have a poem written about themselves. So how is it, you know, to read a poem and then realize in the poem it's you? They're talking about you.
Well, for what she's written so far, I've been very honored to be recognized, and I feel loved by her. Now, what she writes and I don't see may be another story, but what I have seen from her, Traci doesn't write to hurt other people. She writes from her heart, and her heart is filled with love. So that's what comes out when she writes: her concern, her love, what she sees, beauty in nature. She's an amazing young lady.
Great. Yeah, I
So,
just wanted to ask that because we don't really have many people that have, you know, they're inside the poem. They're in between the
yeah,
pages of the book. Yeah.
yeah. Well, what was funny, and Traci might want to comment on this, is that I had read the book a couple times before I read the dedication. Ugh. And it was dedicated to me, and I just cried and cried. I had not seen it, you know. It was dedicated to Patricia Lynn, and oh, that just touched my heart. I'll cry now. I'll cry. I'll cry.
I'm crying.
Stop. Go away,
Oh,
woman. Ah,
go away. I do. I have to. I have to go. I have to go take Jane home and put her
okay.
down. But I'm glad I could step in here for a couple minutes. And I love you, baby.
Thank you, Mommy.
Okay.
You
Bye
added a
bye.
lot, Trish. Thank you very much.
Oh, thank you. Bye bye. Bye bye.
There we go. All right. Tracy.
Well,
Yeah, this
wasn't
is like
expecting
a, it
Trish
seems
to
like it's like,
blindside me there.
yeah, I feel like it's the Ed Sullivan Show or something. We're gonna have other people just come in off the stage or whatever one of those shows where, people came in and whatever. I don't know what those are, but I have to look. No, great. Listen, poetry moves people. So obviously you've moved a lot of people and especially family members. So why don't you read us a few more poems?
I'm going to read you some that aren't from that book. Let's take a little break from Dad and Mom and everyone.
Yeah, we'll put them on the shelf for a while.
Yeah,
They'll be
let's
good.
put them on the shelf. So I mentioned my first publication was 20 years ago, and I just thought I'd read this poem. It was published in poetry, which I mean is a pretty huge deal for your first publication. I was pretty shocked and honored. It's a sonnet, and it's called One Week. For one desperate week, she wanted you to gnaw your cuticles until they bled, then drain them dry, your bloods commingling. In bed, she conjured up your eyes as green, not blue, and pleased, instead of pleading, to undo the spell she'd cast. Desire gave her headaches, stirred her ovaries, made her hip bones spread, her spine stack, her toes curl inside each shoe. You never knew, but I did. So I pissed a ring around you to keep her out, disinterred the local vampire, asked when she'd been bitten, wore the peacock pumps you couldn't resist, crossed off each day, not worried or deterred, reading her like a book that I had written.
Nice, very nice.
Slight change of tone.
Yeah, I was gonna say, yeah, we're going from family to vampires. Yeah,
Yeah.
we're good. Kathy, I hope you're taking notes, Kathy. You're up in a few weeks, so you gotta, you should be going really wide here, really wide.
Go wide.
Yeah, go wide. What do you call it? Vote early and vote often, as I say. I don't know. It's yeah. Yeah, so share some more. I mean, do you have, I know you're writing that new book. Have you completed some poems? Would you feel comfortable reading one of those? Because I'm not familiar with.
Yeah, I'll read one.
Yeah.
I'm happy to. Okay, so I'm not going to read you the French. So this is so some of my feminist interpretations are very loose interpretations. For example, Baudelaire has one poem about all these different artists, and they're all male artists. It's like Goya, maybe Delacroix, and Michelangelo and Da Vinci and all these famous artists. But my feminist interpretation is to use women artists for that poem. So I haven't finished that one yet, but I'm just telling you that a lot of my translations are really interpretations. This one happens to be a pretty straight, literal interpretation or translation actually, of The Albatross by Charles Baudelaire. The Albatross. Often, to entertain themselves, the crew would find some albatrosses, seabirds known for grace and force, those indolent companions who follow behind the vessel, gliding on its bitter, endless course. As soon as they're abruptly dumped on the planks, these rulers of the blue, awkward and insecure, allow their vast white wings to piteously flank their sides and drag along the deck like useless oars. Look at the winged explorer, so aberrant, weak. Him, recently so handsome, who's now an ugly wimp. One sailor put his pipe up to the creature's beak. Another mimes a flying misfit with a limp. The poet is exactly like the Prince of Clouds, who haunts the hurricanes and mocks the archer's strings. Exiled to earth, surrounded by cacophonous crowds, her walking is impeded by her giant wings. So the only change I made in that one, really, to make it feminist, was to make the poet a woman at the end.
Yeah.
Everything else was a direct literal translation. I mean, obviously it's a poetic translation and I had to fit the meter and the rhyme.
Yeah.
But the only thing that I really took license with was changing the poet to a woman at the end. And that does make it feminist.
So when you do a book like that, do you have to tee up what you're doing? You know, your interpretation, or, you know, do you have to tee that up, or do you just, you know, it's just the poems and the reader has to kind of discern what's going on?
So I will write an intro for that book. I wouldn't normally write an intro for a book of poetry. You know, you wouldn't. But I will write an intro and I will explain what I was trying to do and also my love of Baudelaire and what I think Baudelaire is trying to do. I'm sort of embodying Baudelaire. And when you do translations, you sort of have to embody the poet that you're translating, or maybe he's embodying me. But if Baudelaire were a 40-something woman living in this contemporary age, what would Les Fleurs de Mal look like today? A lot of the book is about finding beauty in the obscene or finding beauty in shit, literally. I mean, Les Fleurs de Mal is flowers from, you know, trash, flowers from evil, they say, but I think it means more like flowers from dung or flowers from like the heap. So I'm just saying, looking around me now and seeing the things that I see instead of seeing what he was seeing in Paris in the 18th and 19th centuries.
No. Yeah, very intriguing. And how did you, was that switching gears for you to kind of take on that interpretive work?
It is switching gears, but in the best way. So I feel like it's almost more fulfilling than writing my own work. Also because there's a built-in genius there, so that's a little lazy, but it's also nice. So I've got this built-in genius, and then I get to sort of embody him, or he's embodying me, and we get to play. It feels like play, almost like playing Scrabble or doing a crossword, or it's just this game. So I was doing it for fun, and I would translate French for fun, and I've been doing that for a long time. And then when I had done more than one poem from this book and had some published, that's when I asked my publisher, would you like to do this? And I want to do it this way. I want it to be sort of contemporary and feminist. And she was excited.
Great. Ooh, fantastic. Really nice. So are there some more poems you could read for us?
There are more poems. I've got some.
Yeah, we got 20 years of poems, and we got to end by midnight, so we're good.
Okay, cool. We've got loads of time. I write a lot of sonnets. I write in a lot of forms. I sort of want to read something light, and because the first ones were so heavy. Okay, I'll read these two. These two sort of go together. When I mentioned earlier when I was chatting with Wendy that I used to live in the British Virgin Islands. So I lived there before I lived in the Channel Islands. I'm just this weird little island hopper. So these two are set in the British Virgin Islands. The harbor dock outside the restaurant is shallow, less than 3 feet deep, and clear, with fields of minnows that I might mistake for seagrass if I didn't know the sand and coral floor are usually visible. A stealthy tarpon causes the school to part a perfect path, 3 inches on each side, that closes up again behind him. Hunt he must, but I don't see him catch a thing. I won't wake up tomorrow just like that and be in love with you, you say. Your eyes and open to the sternum cotton shirt are the same blue. Your glasses, folded like a crab and hanging from your neckline, pull it low and tight against your sunburnt chest. And then you say the thing you always do to lure me back. Or I just might, you never know. How you keep me around. But weeks from now, you'll say it was my fault for having hope. I leave the bait alone for once, until the next time you let out a bit more strength. A shadow, then a spear of pelican dives in beside us, nets up minnows in one graceful act. She surfaces, a splash, then bobs and wobbles like a champagne cork, her veiny pouch a quiver, full of prey. So then that one was published alongside this next one in the Hopkins Review last year. And I didn't really necessarily see them together, but once the Hopkins Review put them together, then I thought, okay, well then I'll publish them side by side so they appear like that. So it must have been 2 years ago. We can get together for these last few months, I say, but there's no chance I'll move across the world with you, you know. You know, an expiration date. You find a job. I plan your bon voyage and help you pack. But then you send a text. I'd like to go to Anegada one last time before we leave. You've accidentally written we, as if we are a we, as if we are both leaving here together, as if this is something that we want to save. I let that we wash over me, then sink into it, as I'll sink into, once you're gone, the almost body temperature September sea.
Hey, getting to Jersey.
And then I ended up in Jersey.
Yeah, that's yeah. All the little things that happen in life when someone says something to you. Yeah, my wife had been married before. I proposed to her after we had been, let's see, April, May, June. So we've been together 3.5 months. And I knew it was her. So I proposed to her and she said yes. Then I called up my mom, I'm getting married. Then she goes, I don't know, maybe something's not right with this. So I felt so confident. I said, I know I'm going to marry you. Just tell me when. I left the room and shut the door.
Wow.
Yeah, we got married 3 months later. No, it was great. I think part of it is, no, I'm just amazed. And listen, I think you captured it in the poem of, a small string of words, one word can have a Teutonic shift. Yeah.
No, yeah, just that accidental word. Like,
So
oh,
your
I
husband,
didn't
does your
know that.
husband have any words he can't use now that you're in Jersey? You should say, listen, in the poetry hour, we decided there should be a vocabulary of words that you're not allowed to use. You can use they or them, but not we.
We has caused too many problems.
Yeah. The husband's guide to vocabulary. I love it. Oh man. No, fantastic. No, listen, it's great. It's great. So we're kind of at about 16 or so minutes left. So Kathy or Irene, have any comments or questions? Yeah, Irene, you gotta unmute.
Hello?
Yep.
Hi.
Okay, hi. I'm enjoying all of your words, your storytelling and your poems. They're lovely, very they're revealing and they're moving and they're beautifully crafted.
Thank you so much. Thank you for being here.
Thank you. It's a pleasure. I don't think I have a question though. at the moment.
That's okay. Yeah, and Tracy, what we found is now that people are, post-pandemic, noontime they're at work or having lunch, or, before when we started, everybody was home. We'd have like 25 people every week because no one had anywhere to go.
Yeah, I'm
So,
sure. And it's 5 p.m. here. I mean, mom showing up at 12 was pretty impressive. I thought my friends who were getting off work at 5 might show up. But I have a feeling that they're going to be YouTubing it later.
Well, you're going to get the recording. You can,
Yeah.
charge admission at your house. They'll have to bring free drinks or food, and they
John,
can watch the, yeah.
it is really nice that these are recorded. I haven't been coming. I have some other commitments at this time, and it's nice to be able to go back. And so don't think that when you don't see me as a little Hollywood square, that I'm not interested. I might be listening.
Yeah.
later. Thank you.
I have a question about form. Tracy, you mentioned that you wrote a lot of sonnets, but also other forms. What are your other go-to forms?
I wrote a triolet for the first time in the book about my dad. So Restricted Movement is what it's called. And that was really fun. I've written, it's mostly sonnets, blank verse sonnets, or just blank verse. I'll pick up forms here and there and just sort of like a pantoum, a ghazal. I've written ghazals. And gosh, rondeaus. I'd like to do a crown of sonnets. I would love to do that. And then obviously, because I'm doing the Baudelaire, it's whatever form Baudelaire decides, a lot of quatrains and whatever he's doing. And the French sonnets are different than the Shakespearean sonnets or the Petrarchan sonnets. So that's also fun to play with. They usually have a rhyme in the middle, a couplet in the middle, which is just different. But mostly, yeah, I'm open to all the forms. I love a form. I am very much a formal poet, and there was this form called double exposure that Greg Williamson invented. And basically he describes, remember when we used to get our photographs developed, and he had a pack that was double exposed. So every poem is describing one side of the photograph and the other half is describing another side, but they can both be read together. So it's this beautiful interlocking form. And I've been playing with those with horoscopes and doing horoscopes that are on the cusp. So you'll get, who's next to each other, Gemini and Taurus. So you'll have a poem, a Gemini's horoscope, Taurus's horoscope. But then if you're on the cusp, you get this sort of horoscope for both sides. So I've been playing with that, and that's really fun and so challenging because you're writing 3 poems at once. And then the next poem, so say your Taurus poem, then has to interlock with the next poem, which might be Leo. I don't know how they work. So you then have to make sure you're writing words that fit on their own in one context and then in another context. So it's an absolute brain puzzle, but it's really fun. I've only written 4 signs, so 2 complete double exposures. Thank
That's
you.
incredible. Thank you for telling us about that.
But yeah, they're in his book called, oh dear, I'm not gonna remember, but his name is Greg Williamson. They're called double exposures. What is that book called? Errors in the Script, it's called. It's a brilliant book, absolutely beautiful book. All formal. If you're into forms, he loves the forms.
Wonderful.
No, very interesting. No, that's great. So Tracy, have some more poems to share with us?
Yeah. So I just mentioned a triolet, so we can go back to the Restricted Movement book. The other book that I was reading from is called Waving, and it's published by Assure Press. And that is a little picture of me underwater on the front.
Well, there's a picture on your website. Is that you in the water?
Yep, yep. I used to have, when I lived in the islands, I had a friend who was an underwater photographer, and some of my pals and I used to go over on a Sunday and we would just do these sort of modeling shoots, like he would call them his mermaid shoots, and we would just have like put on costumes, like Space Girl, like whatever we wanted, cheerleader, and just go underwater and do these shoots with him. It was really, really fun. So I thought I might as well use one for the cover of my book, because when else am I going to be able to use those crazy photos?
Yeah, I looked. I was at your website. I'm looking. Is
Yeah.
that a poet?
It was. Okay, so this is my triole. And again, this is written during the pandemic when my dad has been disappearing. And it starts with an epigraph from the office of Maryland Governor Larry Hogan. Marylanders who see unlawful behavior are encouraged to report it. No one has heard from him in weeks. I'm sure that's not quite true. Strangers have seen him, talked to him on corners or some liquor store no one has heard of. Then, in weeks, I'm sure he'll appear cracking jokes like before. Or he might be dead, his body lined in chalk. No one has stirred for some weeks. I assure you, that's not right, strangers. You've seen him talk.
Nice, really nice.
Back to the sort of darker dad stuff. So I have a funny one about my dad, so I think I'll read that one. And it
Yeah,
ends
it's
with
good.
the idea of questioning, so perfect.
Yeah.
This one is called Band. The golden years, a summer day, sundress, linen blazer, I'm happy, divorced. He's been sober 10 years. Cargo shorts and a guayabera shirt, curly gray hair, big belly, big smile. Before retirement, the strokes, relapse. We're chowing on burritos in Fells Point across the square from Shakespeare Street. We chat about the neighborhood, how he was banned from Mary's Polish Haven around the corner for stealing a gumball machine. In fact, he is still barred from there. It's written on their liquor license. So even though it's changed hands and names a dozen times since teenage dad had taken the machine, as soon as I woke up and saw it in my room, I took it back. Dad has been banned for life. He tells me the real reason was because the owner's daughter had a crush on him. Her mom called me the scourge of Fells Point. After lunch, we walk along the water, sun twice as strong reflecting off the harbor's skin, to what is now called One-Eyed Mike's, formerly Mary's Polish Haven. Inside, our eyes adjust. Dark din of wood has vacuumed up the light. Bartender, hey guys, what can I get you? Me, can I see your liquor license? Bartender, suddenly very formal. Yes, of course. He thinks I'm with the liquor board and gets the license off the wall, hands it to me. You see that name, Tommy O'Day? I point to Dad. That's him. The barman breaks into a smile. No way. Can I buy you a shot? According to the license, he should kick him out. Dad, I don't drink anymore. A coffee? Now you're talking. Do you know the other guy on here? He fell off a stool at Grundy's bar, Dad says. Never the same after that. 5 years later, my ex-husband calls to say their mutual local coffee shop banned Dad when they discovered tiny baggies in the bathroom after he'd been there. The doctor tells me it's possible that from his strokes, he's fried the impulse control center of his brain. When he wants something, he needs it immediately, whether it's drugs, coffee, hot dogs, eardrops. He's like an infant, all id and nothing else. I cling to that narrative and make it truth. I won't believe he's fallen off the wagon without cause. But it's possible that after retirement from 40 years of working on the docks, between the prison sentences for theft and rogue and vagabond, he was simply bored. When I reach out to the charity where he volunteered for almost 20 years to see if they would like their logo in our book for free, I'm notified that he's been banned from there as well. He lifted speakers, wine, and beer from their storage room. The next day, brought everything back, except 2 beers. I laugh because his MO hasn't changed from his old gumball stealing days. If I include them in any way, they say, he might construe it as an open door and saunter back, act like he owns the place. New staff who don't know him could take his unpredictability as something else. The phrase boundary issues is used. The person at the charity who clarifies all this is the same one who years ago told me that when she got pulled over for drunk driving at 3 a.m., she called my dad because she knew he'd come and safely take her home, no questions asked.
Really nice. Yeah, really nice. I like it. I like that history of getting kicked out of places. That's soon to come to a major movie theater. Yeah, I'm liking this. He must be quite a character.
He is an absolute character to this day. He's absolutely wonderful. I mean, he's sort of that charming Irishman with bright blue eyes and a little sparkle, and he charms everyone in the world. There's a book called Charming Billy by Alice McDermott. And when I first read it, I was just like, this is Dad. Like, this is him. He's got the Irish charm.
The Irish charm, and hold on to your wallet.
Hold on to your, yeah, exactly.
So we just have a couple minutes left. Any 1 or 2 short poems you want to read? This has been fantastic. I think Kathy and Irene know that I get charged into the poetry world. I get totally buzzed by this hour. It lasts. It's amazing. This is like a medicine that has like a 7-day, effective period. So I'm really good until like Tuesday morning, Kathy, and then I start to droop. But I know that there's something good coming at 12 o'clock.
I'm really happy to be a part of your well-being plan.
Oh yeah, it is. Traci, you'll be named as a co-conspirator, definitely.
Okay, this is one that I wrote a while ago, and again, it's from Waving. Verse 1. It's more they fall for me than I for them. They're not my type or even my favorite archetype. Drummers are the woodsmen, marching us, reluctant ones, to choruses of dwarves in Snow White's case, or new adoring parents in Corinth for Oedipus, saving us from instigating oracles and glass. Bridge. The orphan Dorothy's woodsman, Tin, had too much heart, but not enough for her. The chopping robot wept rusty tears only for himself. Verse 2. Me? I'm a sucker for the forsaken, an Oedipus who needs Snow White to slay with, not a predictable woodsman or shepherd who can't even kill when told. Don't get me wrong. We're indebted to the woodsmen, our keepers. They have their role, but I'll take the damned lead singer every time.
Love it. Love it. So I'm glad I didn't ask your mother about your early childhood. We'll leave that for another show.
Was that poem a little Freudian?
Yeah, I was gonna say this. Yeah. Yeah, it would be pretty unique if somehow magically, every kid, I don't know, by a certain age, had all these poems that had interpreted their lives. Yeah, really nice. Fun. This is fun. So one more, and then we have to sail off into the wild blue yonder.
Okay. This one is called 3.14. Oh, and it's in trimeter, manometer, then tetrameter. So it's in 3 feet, 1 foot, then 4 feet to mimic the 314, just because you won't necessarily hear that when I'm reading it.
Yeah.
It's like the genius who pursues the final decimal of pi. The more she calculates and marks down yet another numeral, the further she becomes. When all she has to do is simply look at any circle to observe the truth of what's in front of her.
Very nice. Very nice.
Thanks.
Well, Traci, thank you for a compelling hour. And we heard, we'll have to hear about the other sister. We heard one sister reviewed the book. So we'll save your childhood stories, the third sister. There's a whole list of stuff we have to do some mining, some more metallic mining about the
Yes. Some metal detecting.
And listen, I think you get 5 or 6 more poetry books. Just ready. Traci's going, oh no, I have to write it. All of a sudden I'm thinking.
Oh no.
No, really, really, thank you for your creativity and your passion about it. And your
John,
willingness.
thank you so much for having me. Wendy, thank you. Thank you to my wonderful audience members. I really, really appreciated chatting with you today and having a chance to talk about my work. It's very special what you do, and that you give voice to poets and you give us a place to just chat about our craft, which we love to do.
Yeah.
It's nice
And
for us.
Kathy, I look forward to yours in a couple weeks.
Thank you so much.
Yeah. Great. Very good. Thank you, everybody. See you next